Thank you. It's a pleasure to be here moderating this panel with such important players and dear friends. Today we have a round of friends here to chat, and we're going to talk about zoosanitary risks, and, and we're going to discuss how to avoid and prevent them and how to overcome big challenges. This panel is here, has been announced by Lilia, Dr. João Sampaio, Bolis, and Santin Ribas. Going to provide us all their opinions and a brief presentation of 15 minutes each, and then we can discuss a subject that is essential and very important for our world. We have the swine pest and avian flu, and these challenges are related to human health as well. And the health of the animals and when breeding animals requires prevention, requires technological instruments, but also require to ensure what we're discussing here at GAF, which is world food security in a growing world and consuming more protein. So to me, it's an honor to be here. I would like to call my friend João Sampaio to start his presentation and this round of discussions, which we're going to discuss the sanitary risks and how to avoid and prevent them. João, the floor is yours. Good afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Ricardo. It's an honor to be here. I'd like to also mention our friends here, Delair and Ribas. Are going to learn a lot with them. I'm pretty sure we're going to exchange a lot of experiences here, and I hope that all of you that are hearing us here on live or online can also enjoy these discussions. So like Ricardo mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit about zoosanitary issues, but I'm going to try to establish a link between sanity and trade within my specific field, which is bovine meat, beef. So sanity, which has a negotiable value and essential, is many times used as a trade barrier, as an obstacle. And for that, I prepared 4 slides real quick here. The first one shows 3 columns. In the first column, we have the exporters. We can hear Brazil, approximately 20%, more than 20% of the share of exporters around the world, and we've been growing. And again, not because of sanity, we can't access all the important large markets. Brazil, for example, can't access Japan, Korea. It's difficult to enter Mexico, Turkey, some important consumer countries with large populations. The second column shows the production of beef. So in this case, Brazil is the second place, just behind the United States, although they have a smaller cattle, but their production is greater than ours. I imagine, and the trend is that Brazil in 5 years or so will be able to surpass the United States and will become not only the largest exporter, but the largest producer of meat, beef. And the last column is the consumer countries. So you can see here the importance, to just have an idea, this column is important to show that how much Brazil have in terms of options and how much sanity is considered as a barrier. United States, for example, they didn't buy beef from Brazil because first the risk of diseases. After some negotiation, they started accepting the World Animal Health Organization accepted the Brazilian sanitary system and started accepting Brazilian beef proceeding from areas free from disease with vaccination. After that, it had been suspended because the Americans found in some deliveries absence of vaccination products. So it took 2.5 years for Brazil to start supplying beef to the United States again, and now we are supplying a small share, but we're able to access at least part of this large market, which is the United States. But we still are not able to access Japan and many other countries. So we have some room to improve, to grow, which is very important. Our next slide, it's just to give you an idea. I will make all the slides available to everyone. This is a study that shows the global trend of beef, where production is growing and importation and exportation are growing. You can see here Latin America, for example, has a great potential. Africa also some great potential there, some growth to show. But the most important thing here is to show that in terms of production will grow less than at a smaller rate than consumption, and this will make sanitary issues to become more and more prevalent and more important, either for good or for the bad. For in a country that requires beef, what would not be accepted may be accepted, but in other countries it will create some barriers to protect their markets. The next slide, it shows in a specific case for bovines, for beef, which is a disease that called the attention of the whole world, which is the issue of the foot and mouth disease and the status of each country. Basically, the World Animal Health Organization divide countries in those free from foot and mouth disease, with vaccination, without vaccination, and suspended countries, and those with risk that is unknown. So you can see here in gray is the unknown risk. The red is suspended countries. The dark green is free countries, countries free of the disease but without vaccination, and the light green countries like Brazil, Argentina, North Argentina, Uruguay. There are countries that are free of the foot and mouth disease but with vaccination. So this map is important to give you an idea of what is the status of foot and mouth disease in the world. It's very restricted. The whole world has fought this disease. The World Animal Health Organization plan was to end this disease until 2035, but it was extended until 2030, and we have this time to eradicate this disease, especially from the importer countries, right? I don't want to just keep talking about these graphics, these charts, because they're too boring, but some of the graphics that show where the cases have grown in number. You can see that in green, you can see Latin America, and it's the main beef producing region in the world, and which had the best efforts, the best work was being implemented, and the companies really became professionalized, and some good partner companies of animal health sector had this effort, this continuous, this cooperative effort with the government as well. So we were able to improve a lot and advance and move forward. So now I'm going to just give you a few examples of what I commented, which is involving sanity and trade. For example, Turkey is an important country. It's a great beef consumer with a large population. The country does not import beef from Brazil. Their main allegation is the sanitary allegation, because we have risk of foot and mouth disease. But they import live cattle, so they don't import the beef because of technical allegation that we have the risk of foot and mouth disease, but they import the livestock, which is even a greater risk. But what happens in Turkey is that there's a religious issue, a cultural issue there, that the population prefers to buy the live animals instead of the beef itself. And the importation sector is a strong economic power there. And this happens in several countries, such as Mexico, for example. It's difficult for Mexico to import beef because of the foot and mouth disease, but they're following the same pattern as the United States. So they have some local protection for their local trade to kind of avoid foreign competition, which it's coming from basically from South American countries and mainly from Brazil, which would be a more competitive country, right? Indonesia, for example, recently has many focus of foot and mouth disease. They import a lot of livestock from Australia, and they started having supply issues. First, because the cattle in Australia decreased, and they sent part of it to China, part of his beef to China. So they're buying beef from Brazil, but they still have a lot of limitations, limitations on origin, and so on. And now they have some issues with foot and mouth disease there in Indonesia. It's it's a large focus in the world. In South America, the last outbreaks of foot and mouth disease we still have a lot of work to do. Brazil, the last outbreak was in 2005-2006. Uruguay and Paraguay since 2001, and Argentina since 2003. So we have this potential. We can advance in this market, and I imagine that in a few years, the foot and mouth disease and the sanitary disease based on the foot and mouth disease will no longer be a trade barrier or a sanitary barrier, and we're going to be able to move forward. Brazil has currently a very special condition of being able to have different sources, because we're such a huge country, a continental country. So there are different. There's a big range of products that can be offered: organic meat, beef, all sorts of meat and beef that we can offer to our customers with 100% assurance of sanity. We have an audited, imported sanitary system, certified by many international organizations. And what we need to do is to be better negotiate, be more proactive, commercially speaking, and really seek to open more new markets. And in our internal market, which is it's even more relevant for Brazil. Just to have an idea, we export approximately 25% of what we produce. Our internal market is really important and relevant, and it has been gradually requiring better quality products, differentiated products, more sustainable and more traceable products. And this can show the internal consumer that they are consuming a good quality product from the sanitary and sustainability perspective. That's what I wanted to say, just to give you an overview about the bovine market. Thank you, Dr. João, Director of Minerva, one of the great global players for meat, which brings us this link between the importance of taking care of sanity to be able to access these markets and ensure the people. I would like to call on my friend Delair, CEO of EMSD for Brazil, Uruguay, Paraguay, and Bolivia. Dear friend, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Ricardo. It's a huge pleasure to be here with you, with João and Ribas. Could you just hand me the clicker? I'd like to thank the organizers of the event and congratulate them. I think that we are coming here with a purpose. We want to contribute to a rich discussion and allow ourselves the possibility of produce more and more quality animal protein in an optimized manner. We all come from a culture where we were used with 45-minute presentation. Now they are being reduced, and now they have already been reduced to 10 minutes only, and now we have sometimes even business pitches or startup pitches. They should be lasting for 5 minutes. I will speak for 10 minutes only, but I'll try to be an old school kind of guy. Yeah, you have 15 minutes. Yeah, okay, keep that in mind. So in 45 minutes, Brazil produces animal protein that is sufficient to feed a 97,000 inhabitant city for the whole year. So this is the size of our responsibility as producers of animal protein, and this huge responsibility of the role of animal health that is behind that. There are 4 pillars that support that. Yes, we want to maximize more and more in the animal productivity. We still have the opportunity to maximize and produce more and better in an even more efficient way. However, the main differential, the main competitive edge that we have will remain as being food safety. People know that. This is our competitive edge as producers of animal protein, and this is where the animal health is important. Naturally, there is the role of the animal health, and I was talking during lunch that our main challenge is to keep on removing the needles, or that would mean having products and vaccines being applied without the need of needles. I think that Ribas from Seara knows what we're talking about. The major development of products is using other technologies that avoid the use of needles, and animal well-being also considers something else. Every animal has the right of being treated when they are sick, as long as this treatment is done in a responsible manner. And in the second line, there is something that is called One Health, and that is the conjunction of some of these pillars, some of these foundations. There is a QR code on the screen. I would like to encourage you to use your smartphones, and if you read this code, you will register yourselves for free in Spotify or YouTube link, so that you can listen to a 20 minutes podcast for free, a podcast that deals on this concept of One Health. Ricardo started this debate talking about 3 diseases. There are 3 diseases that can be controlled, the major diseases that we face today, through the use of vaccines. The orange line shows the evolution of the use of vaccines in Brazil. In the year of 2018, around 21% we had around the year of 2018, and we haven't really changed it much, but we in our business, we have become leaders in vaccines because, well, this is the responsibility of a company that is the leading company in its sector, and we are the leading company in our sector, so we should contribute our role in prevention, together with the use of antimicrobial medication in a responsible manner. This makes Brazil still competitive in the current scenario. João showed that the whole world is at a green status, but this is due to the production of vaccines that are quality vaccines and were used responsibly. Another point that I would like to draw your attention to: if you are an animal protein producer, from the animal health standpoint, there are 4 needs that are involved. The first one is disease control. The second is performance. When you are working on the prevention. The second aspect is the increase of productivity. The third is the return on investment that you made. And finally, you have the last one, which is the moment where you use animal health to get access to certain markets. What do I mean by that? The more you use the technology, more to the right of your graph, you will find yourself. Consequently, the production of milk in Brazil, 15% of it uses high technology. We still have 85% of the milk production in Brazil using an intermediate to a low level of technology. There's a huge opportunity here, and we should democratize this technology. When we are talking about beef, we have 30%, and we go to the poultry, we have 55%, and when we go to pork, we have 50%. All these figures in the high technology side. And why is this important? The combination between technology and animal health, they help us to increase productivity. What does this chart show? João is a specialist in the bovine department, but he showed us some figures. And on the first column we have the countries, the second column shows the percentage of participation in the cattle herd, and the last column shows the percentage of their participation in beef production, really. So the US has around 9% of the total cattle herd, but they produce around 22% of all beef on earth. We have around 21% of the entire cattle herd, but we produce 17% of all the meat in the world, all beef. China has around 10% of the entire global cattle herd. And then we have also the figures for the EU. What do I mean by that? Why do the US has such a good position here? Because they use technology. They use technology. It is simple as that. One of the technologies they use is the use of implants. I think that this is a healthy discussion we should have in Brazil. So, this possibility of traceability is quite interesting. Another interesting data for you. In Israel, it takes from 4 to 5 days for an ox to recover from a disease, but that time is longer in Brazil, from 7 to 9 days, because we are not using technology that could allow us the right moment to use the antibiotics in these animals. So that could help us to even use less antibiotics, because again, that would allow us to have a much more preventive approach than a healing approach. I believe that there is a lot to be debated. The use of technology in animal health actually should not be seen only as the control of diseases, the prevention of diseases, or improvement of productivity. It should and it must be seen as a tool that can help us in the traceability, in animal traceability. This will allow us then to give even more added value to our products abroad as a result of food safety. I'm representing my own company, but I also represent another company that is a leading company in this segment, and we invest in this technology area. These are 5 startups that we acquired in the past 3 years, and they bring basically technology to this sector. We invested around $4 billion in the acquisition of these startups. I will try to exemplify what they do. The first one is called Allflex. It works on animal identification and monitoring, which allows us to have a better use of this animal unit. The second is called Vaki. It allows the monitoring, identification and counting of fishes. The third one is called Quantified AG. Quantified AG basically anticipates this is this Israeli technology I just mentioned. It analyzes the animal behavior, the animal temperature, and can then anticipate the diagnosis of a disease. It allows you to anticipate at the moment of treating this disease. Identigen works with the traceability of the protein from the DNA. So you will be in Paris eating a lasagna, and you will get a slice of the beef, and you will be able to know if this beef came from an ox that was raised or slaughtered in the Amazon region or not. So these are things that we should adopt here in Brazil. And the last of the startup, it has already started a project with Seara, and the company is called Poultry Sense. It monitors by the use of thermal sensors and scales. It monitors poultry behavior, weight, temperature, and with that they can anticipate the occurrence of diseases. So I'm talking about animal health and showing you some tools that can help us to use vaccines, yes, at the right moment, but use less and less antimicrobial medication, and even in a more responsible manner. Well, thank you. I think that I have stick to the time limit. This is my personal data. If you want to get in touch with us, we will be at your
Thank you for excellent presentation, and thank you for all of this information and data. It's good to know that animal health company gives us these figures and provides these figures to take care of our animals in a better way and avoid these types of episodes of diseases. But above all, take care of global food security. We have more and more intelligence and more applications. Less availability of waste and carbon footprints, more food for the people. So thank again, Bolis. Now, Dr. José Ribas, my dear friend, director of Seara, and a guy who really inspires me with what he says. So I asked for the authorization to say that Ribas taught me the following sentence: "Costs hurt, but sanity kills." So that's what I heard from the professor. So, Ribas, the floor is yours. His microphone is not on. Excuse me. Okay, now it's working, right? Okay, good. Thanks, Ricardo. Thanks, João, Bolis. It's a great pleasure to be with you here. All the organizers of this event. I'm a little bit old school, Bolis. I would love to have 45 minutes to talk, but because I'm passionate about our agribusiness segment, I feel that we talk a little bit of Brazil that works, right? Brazil that is not in the media, is not in the large media channels, but is a Brazil that we can be proud of, and we can be proud of its achievements and its journey as well. We've seen record productions, science being developed. Bolis showed a lot of technology that has been used. We can include in this technology currently our agribusiness segment is a great producer of photovoltaic energy. Our agribusiness is a great preserver of the environment. We take care of people, and we're going to talk a little bit about that. And we do that with sanity, right? Because no other country in the world that is relevant in the production of pork and poultry. If you want to study sanitary problems, you can go to other countries, because here in Brazil, you're going to have to do it in the laboratory. You're not going to see it in the field. We are a country that, of course, I'm not going to, it's not only thank God, but it's thanks to our work, to the science, to the relentless work of our professors who really understood the challenges of biosafety and were able to bring us here to 2022, being with the world being facing such problems of foot and mouth disease and other diseases. We are free from such diseases, so there's a lot of science serving this. I'm going to try to be quick here. I want to have an approach that brings sanity into the context of sustainability, because everybody is talking about sustainability today, right? And when you think about that, you see that Bolis talked about the unique health this relationship between the planet and the animals and the people is in transformation. I mean, a lot of science and accountability in all of Brazilian companies and production chain of poultry, of pork meat, and so on, moving forward to do what we already did well, but we didn't call it ESG. But now with this new packaging of ESG to show the world that we can do it. Brazil is quickly going to start exporting pork and poultry and beef and carbon credits. And carbon credits, I think, is going to be one of the most relevant products that we're going to sell, because we can do it. This is the agricultural segment that we're building a very honest relationship with the foods. I'm going to mention some of other sentences. More than 1,000 audits per year, so it's a huge cost, right? If we did something wrong, it would be a huge cost to hide it from these auditors, and that's what we've been doing. We've been doing the right thing. I would like to mention as well COP26, which brought different directioning for how the production in the world will move forward, considering food as national sovereignty, talking about healthy and safe foods. China, which created a document for their self-sufficiency in terms of foods until 2030. They're going to look for 5% of their needs for food from other countries. And these other countries can include Brazil, because we're able to deliver. If they want to consume vegetable protein, we can produce it. If they want to consume pork, we can do it. Beef, we can do it. Poultry, okay. If they want grown protein, we're going to export it soon, grown in the lab. So Brazil should and must occupy this space. We have all the conditions to move from this self-assessment, the syndrome that we feel small in the negotiations, and to show our greatness and the work that we've been doing in terms of ESG. The agricultural business here in Brazil is responsible for bringing development away from the capitals. There's such a rich world aside from the capital of São Paulo. Chapecó, it's a huge city in Brazil. What would be of it? What would be of Lucas do Rio Verde, of many other cities here that if it wasn't for the agricultural business, they wouldn't develop themselves as much. There are a lot of consolidated work showing that the human index is higher, and I'm not saying only about the slaughterhouses, but the granges as well is higher human development index than other regions. And we've seen this happening all the time, and I'm even going faster in my presentation here. There's a digital transformation going on in the agricultural business today. I think this is one of the great leverages that allows us to improve the well-being, health, and that we're able to do things in a different way. When I started as a professional, our main concern was the aging of the rural environment. The youngsters were leaving the field and going to the cities, and what we've seen now is that a lot of young people, they stay at these lands, and they, due to the inclusion of the digital world, the pork and poultry activities in Brazil is the new Silicon Valley of the world. We're becoming more technical in a very quick way, very accelerated way, because of these youngsters are now managing the slaughterhouses, the granges, and they're increasing the efficiency. And nothing more ESG, nothing more related to sustainability that efficient production, right? You being able, with the well-being, the health, produce more tons of food, consuming less natural resources, so less grains, less water, and so on. And we've been able to do so. We now have production efficiencies that some regions of some countries can compare to us, but not whole countries in terms of efficiency. And this shows a little bit of all of this work that has been done. Although we need to understand that this world is a world in movement. When we talk about linearity, when we were starting being professionals 10 years ago, we were discussing this during lunch. We had a project for 2021 in the 90s. We were talking about 2030 in 1990s. And very few things happened very different from what we planned. Greatest seal of quality and seal of sanity that we can display, because we couldn't hide it from 160 countries at the same time, right? So this is a big challenge for the new generation who's arriving in the consumer market, because when we talk about animal well-being, we are respecting these animals who give their life to feed people, and they're raised in an environment, they're bred in an environment that is better than the environment that many people around the world. So and these birds, they don't have a health plan. They have a veterinary there 24/7. They have a nutritionist that have their balanced ratios, and this is done with a lot of science, a lot of accountability, and we need to understand that. At the same time, we need to be less excludent and more inclusive, because it doesn't need to be and it can be or. But the world can consume animal protein or vegetable protein. It doesn't need to be excludent. We need to show this to the world, because there's a lot of people to feed in the world. And I say that the pork and poultry chains, they combine two characteristics that are very different from other economic activities. We are intensive and extensive. So the bird, the chicken that you ate today during lunch, or the pork was started to be produced 5-8 years before, because the whole chain that unravels in this segment. At the same time, we're very intensive. In the 45 minutes that we've been discussing this subject here, we produce protein to feed a city of many people for 1 year. A lot of animals going to the slaughterhouse, moving this huge chain. This requires a lot of accountability, planning, and science, because the sanitary risks are there, the management risks are there, and we've been doing some great work here in Brazil with these subjects. We still have here in Brazil, I'm not going to talk about traceability, I'm going to talk about the change in the consumer profile, because we already know that. But we're here living here a conflict in Brazil. We're talking about Grange 5.0, but we still have Grange 1.0 going on. And we need to take care of all of them, because they brought us here. We cannot only take care of animal well-being, we need to take care of human well-being. There are many families of producers who have all their income from these activities, and we need to give them credit for investment, allow them to improve efficiency in production, because not only getting the right direction of the transformations that we need all around the world, not only here in Brazil, we need to take care of the speed with which this happens. If we go too fast, we're going to bring unnecessary costs, or if we go too slow, we're going to miss out some processes that are really important in the markets. So I'm going to the end of my presentation here. So under all aspects regarding sustainability and sanity as well, the next 5 years are going to be very transformative, much more than the last 30 years. In the next 30 years will really determine the fate of the planet, right? And I don't want to be negationist here, or I don't want to make terrorism, but it's not a catastrophe, an apocalypse. There's a science behind it to be able to produce all of these animals. For example, methane, which is one of the great problem of pork breeding, can become a solution and will generate income for the producers. In terms of biofuels or renewable electric power, our energy matrix is really good matrix, much better than most of our competitors, because we use hydroelectric power. But nowadays in Brazil we have photovoltaic energy equivalent to the Itaipu power plant. We have biomethane becoming a biofuel as one of the great options for our market. So there are a lot of solutions. Brazil that works, a Brazil that is not displayed in the media, in the great media channels, the great society, and we are the leaders. We have the role of leaders of being less reactive and more proactive in our communication. In fact, show our production and make it intensively, because we see physicians saying things that are incorrect about our supply chain, teachers teaching incorrect things to our kids, but we need more leadership. We're in the year of election, but let's vote on congressmen that can talk about the agribusiness, that are knowledgeable about this segment, and that can do this as a policy. We need state policies that really do long-term agro plannings to have the right investments at the right time, at the right place, and we need to take care of that. Otherwise, we'll create competitors for a chain that already suffers with foreign competitors within our production system. The red and green, green and red that is mentioned here, all this discourse about sustainability is beautiful, but you can't have your cash on the downside. So, but we have this commitment. We don't need to give in to temptation. We need to do it with responsibility, with accountability, with science, bringing our comparative advantages into competitive advantages. This allows us to be real quick to diagnose when we have technical assistance. If there's any issues with the birds, we can have a clearness, a diagnosis not in 15 days, but in a matter of hours. And this allows us to evolve within our systems. And just to wrap up here, Ricardo, we need to honor the past, all the leaders that brought us here, but we need to build a new future. People are our main asset, because this integration chain is strong for the poultry and pork segments. The digital transformation is also essential to bring the youngsters to the farms, and also to improve our innovation and all of our indicators. And innovation and efficiency are directly related to ESG. We need to do it together. We are here, suppliers, partners, our entity at the federal level, to transform the whole segment as a whole. Now I'm going to sentence by Obama that is a very interesting sentence that he mentioned, that if we're waiting for the right moment and the right moment to have change, what we can say is that the moment is now, and the people are us. We are going to do this transformation. Thank you very much. Just a few messages and some information so that we can have a discussion. Thank you. Ribas, brilliant. Thank you very much for all the information you brought. This is perspective for the future, and above all, transparency. Right? This is important to have this transparency, this data, the information, to show that we are ready to collaborate with the world and prepare Brazil for these other challenges that we're going to face.
Okay, so I believe that we can now have a discussion. You can ask questions to each other and make comments. I always say that, Ribas, you made a kind of a joke, but I always try to do 3 things to prevent disease. The first thing, I like to pray. I'm a Catholic. The second thing, I like to knock on wood. And the third thing is prevention. It works. You have to do something. The other 2 ones, they are like beliefs you have, but I think that we should work on prevention. You mentioned things about the technology and things that can help in terms of transparency. How do you see this scenario where we see the world that is walking towards the appearance of new diseases in situations where countries are being closed to each other in terms of trade and some other possibilities? I think that we should have better rules and acknowledge things. If we have foot and mouth disease, I mean, we shouldn't be shutting down these states. I would like to hear from you, Francisco. I mean, how many Europes can fit inside Brazil? But if there is a case of African swine fever in Germany, Spain is not close, but here in Brazil things should be different in their view. Yeah, you could make a comment on that, on this compartmentalization. Can you hear me? Is my mic on? Okay. Okay, Ricardo. Well, two comments that I could make. I could leave the comment on compartmentalization to Ribas, but the graph, the chart I showed you, the more technology is used, the more prevention is used, and then more access to market we get. That more contributes more and more for us to have an easy access to the market. So I had promised that I would have a management in the association that I serve as the president without talking about foot and mouth disease, but we should remind ourselves of something. Foot and mouth disease represents less than 88% of the animal health segment. So we survive very well, yes, thank you, without the occurrence of foot and mouth disease. But we should be working on that in a responsible manner, in a technical manner, planning things ahead. Because we used to have in our capacity of production of 1.7 billion doses of foot and mouth disease vaccines. Now we have around 1/3 of that, and if we in the future resume vaccination with 2 doses, we won't have a capacity for that. João also gave an interesting comment. Brazil exports to 126 countries around the world. Is that right? Yeah. So that has been achieved with quality, with responsibility, and with the vaccination as well. So I think it is important that we work all together in an aspect. When I mentioned the technology at the beginning in the US, I think that the next step in Brazil is to start doing something that's called segregation. We should be able to segregate. We should be able to implement segregation protocols. Animal traceability and monitoring will allow us to segregate and then allow us to have the compartmentalization that we have with poultry and pork. So I agree with that. When we bring that to when we look actually to the program of foot and mouth disease eradication program, we had these steps, and I think that we should negotiate things step by step, block by block. Another important comment that we should be making here, when it comes to compartmentalization, we have the possibility of producing all kinds of, I mean, let's say I want an animal like this or that. We can get volume here. I would like, and I stand for the use of hormones or implants. It makes no sense. We know that there's a huge part of the world that accepts that. So it is also possible to produce a different kind of animal in different places. So we do have this potential. We have this ability, and it's an absurd that we are not using it. Ribas is, I mean, like, an excellent guy in this field. What is applicable to pork is applicable to poultry or to fish farms. We should be producing what consumers want, after all. So, are we able to do it? Yes. Okay. We can do that in the state of Rio Grande do Sul. We will be able to produce a given animal with a certain genetic that will result in a certain product. But yes, we do need to have traceability so that we can ensure that this given animal is being segmented correctly for that kind of market. Yeah, this is what I see, Ricardo. I liked what you mentioned here, but there should be a set of rules that is agreed among us and among Brazil and the rest of the world. We shouldn't have different set of rules. And before we talk about companies and sectors, we need to have a strong political stand. I think that we need to also win trust in the market abroad. I think that we should have a proactive communication. When people come from abroad to visit us, they see that we perform a very serious job here. This is something important. Now, talking about the market, let's talk about what occurs at the farms. The need to continue to invest on the staff. We need to have quality staff, people who are qualified and trained on biosecurity. This is something that should be learned on a daily basis, because fatally, if you do everything right, you may have a sanitary problem. If you do more than one thing wrong, things, of course, will become riskier, but even if you do everything right, you may run the risk of having problems. And the idea of segregation must also touch on a point that we are doing very well in, but we must get fast diagnosis and fast reaction rules. Let me give you one example of the previous case we had in Chile. In 72 hours, between the suspicion and the elimination of all suspected animals, it took 72 hours, so we can eliminate, isolate the problem and avoid the remaining animals in the country to suffer from that problem. So we should do things fast. Again, we've been through this experience. I mean, if there's a problem with a given animal, it is possible that the newspapers are printing this news before we are able to do something. So we should be careful about that, the way we treat the relevant information here in the country. And we must have a robust and fast ability to respond, an ability that is close to the conditions and the animals, so that we can somehow protect ourselves. But yeah, the segregation, the regionalization, these are solutions that we should be doing, and we are trying to do in a country with continental dimensions as ours. We maybe will not threaten the supremacy position that the US have, since they have a large internal market, but still we can challenge them somehow. But we should be careful. This continental size that we have, and we have animals traveling large distances, we must be careful and make some decisions to regionalize and close down on these possibilities of risks. These possibilities of being fast in the diagnosis and closing some gaps in terms of fragilities that we have in our system will allow us to become safer. We have the only compartmentalized poultry slaughtering plant in the world. Belongs to our company, and that's something we know how to do, and this concept has to be expanded. It has to be regional, and I believe it will allow us to get many more achievements. I think this is the journey that we should be going through, and we made many achievements in the past years with the Ministry of Agriculture and some other entities. We had great progress, and we should keep on going. We should keep on modernizing our system. And I mean, I think that we could say that when in doubt, we could leave it to the private companies to do it, and they can do it very, very well. I think that the Ministry of Agriculture is very proactive and ready to respond. We are a free country, and the regionalization is proposed for some of the regions, showing that the ministries and the secretaries of agriculture, they work well, and this transparency is something that can only help Brazil. We should tell this message to the world, and we should be transparent amongst ourselves more and more. We are a country that has preserved 4 millions and many 100,000 kilometers of forest. I think that the world is listening to us. We shouldn't think that we are doing things wrongly. This is part of our DNA. And when we talk about sustainability, ESG, and health, so that we can give a good foundation for global food security, I'd like to listen to your final words. We only have 7 minutes, 10 minutes, for a final comment. Yeah, I'd like you to touch on these comments: sustainability, health, animal health as pillars for the global food security. I'd like to invert the order, but still, I think that the main evidence of everything that you mentioned here, Ricardo, we are going through a catastrophic moment, but still, we went through a quality test for us because we recovered a great deal of markets within 90 days. We were active in almost all the markets because the world has seen and the world knows the serious work we do when it comes to quality control. We are feeding so many countries and providing good quality product. Our leaders in the company we work, they usually say that there is no leading product that is a poor quality product. The smartphone that sells the most is a good one. The car that sells the most is a good one. The TV set that sold the most, it should be a good one. So the country that exports more poultry in the world couldn't be making a poor quality product. So we do have all these controls, and this is a quality seal again. But this is not the entry ticket for the upcoming match. So yeah, we do preserve, but we do definitely need to get rid of the bad examples that don't represent the sectors that are being mentioned here. We should get rid of these bad examples so that we can have more and more positive visibility. And when there's an artist that goes to a pork farm that shows a poor treatment of animals, that gives us a very bad publicity. But we need more data and a work together that combines the efforts from the private sector and government with the many different ministries and secretaries and the entire chain of suppliers, everyone putting the efforts together so that we can reach that. I think that the protein industry will be highly challenged in the upcoming years because this generation that is coming demands a new behavior from companies, both the legal entities and individuals. And well, I could say that if anyone in the world could be talking about sustainability, we are the ones. We take care of people, and we created an environment of human development. We do that. I usually say that the agribusiness generates business and economic activity. And these things generate employment, consumption, and on its turn, again, we make all this wheel go round, this virtuous cycle go round. And because of the agribusiness, city halls and governments were able to invest because the agribusiness drives this movement. We should appropriate ourselves of that. We should take care of people. The level of governance we have, we export managers to the entire world. We have a very good, very high level in this segment. And now the other aspects are related because we have fact and data to show to the world. I think that we should not put ourselves as the underdogs, and we should assume the position as protagonists in the production of protein for the world.
Ricardo, first, it's a pleasure to be with you here, João and Ribas. What we discuss here today, I agree 100% with João. Tell us what to produce and we can produce it, but it's important that for the world, before questioning us how we do it, come and visit us to see how we do it. I think this is the most important of it all. He was mentioned about the role of the agro business. I'm proudly son of my father with 46 hectares of land, was able to put 4 kids into college. I lived 15 years out abroad due to the agribusiness, and the most important thing is that we have the same purpose. Ribas said that in 30 years we'll be have a better world for our children, and we can outsource the education of our kids. We're all fathers here. We may outsource their educations, but we can't outsource the behavior of and the character of our children. And Brazil can outsource many things, but they will never outsource our behavior and our character in producing animal protein. This is in our DNA. It is our essence. This responsibility for sustainability, this responsibility for producing quality products with more or less technology. This is not only in this panel here. It's down there in the rural producer in Santa Catarina or in Pará or wherever. I think we need to start negotiating more and more, and you play a brilliant role.
Ministério estão representando.
Are representing Brazil, but the behavior and the character of Brazilians for producing animal protein, it's in our DNA, it's in our essence to work with such quality. Yes, first of all, I would like to thank Ricardo, Agro, everyone, all my colleagues here, and Ribas for just continuing what you're mentioning, Ricardo, about sustainability. I think Brazil does it and we do it well. We need to assume this. We try to defend them ourselves, but we need to be proactive. Ribas mentioned something that I would like to complement a little bit, which are the possibilities that are in front of us if we assume this narrative. So, for example, carbon credits, for example, there's a huge potential. Methane, there's a huge potential as well. Brazil is sustainable. What we really need to do is we need to be able to show this to the world by means of the technology, like Delair said, and measure this. So we have the possibility of assuming this protagonism, to assume this narrative, and to have the state policies that I believe that we have people that is qualified, that is prepared to do so. And what we need to do is work. We need to work hard, is assume our role, take the steering wheel, and move forward. I think that's the message I would like to leave with you all here. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, João, Ribas, Bolis, for this panel. I'm pretty sure that those who are hearing us and those who are seeing online, we know that we in Brazil, we care about sanity, and we want to continue to be partners of local industries, complementing more than 180 countries that buy beef and poultry and pork from Brazil. It's important to say that we take care of, like you all have said, we take care of the protein because our kids, our sons eat this protein, and that's why it's in our DNA, and we're going to take care with prevention, technology, data, and more working for food security. Thanks, everyone. Congratulations for this panel.